Good morning, everyone. Lee Henson here, President and Founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's edition of Daily Stand-Up. Without any further ado, let's get started. One of our focuses this week has been on the top 5 trending Agile topics for 2020. Outside of staying home, outside of COVID, outside of remote workspaces. We wanted to pick up on some things that we saw that are interesting, that we see organizations moving toward. And so far this week, we've had a great little run. We've had the opportunity to focus on Agile beyond the IT group and how it's really proliferating inside of all different types of organizations, whether or not they're building software, which is pretty cool. We talked about a distinction and understanding of clear Agile leadership roles and how Agile leadership really has taken a turn, and how many organizations, instead of focusing on the work and organization of the work, they're focusing on creating new roles, which leads to creating confusion. And then, of course, yesterday we talked about Agile for marketing. So today I wanted to talk about one that's captain obvious for many of you, but the reason behind it is what's going to be the interesting piece today. I wanted to talk about scaling Agile. Now, I'm not specifically referring to scaled Agile framework. I'm not specifically referring to less or disciplined Agile or any of those, in any sense. Or even Scrum at scale. What I wanted to focus on today is the logic behind why organizations feel the need to scale. Why are they taking these steps? And is it a smart thing to do? Is it smart to scale? It's interesting to see because it depends on why the organization is choosing to scale as to whether or not it's a good idea. So if your organization is scaling because they really have mastered the underlying fundamental framework, they are achieving sprints easily, they are completing everything in a sprint without carrying work over, they have dramatically reduce the amount of technical debt within the organization, and they feel like they are operating in a real good clip, and that many teams are in that norming stage, some are starting to reach performing. I would argue that's a great time to scale, because then it gives you the ability to really discuss how you can still maintain WIP, how you can still maintain satisfactory work in progress, and maintain a certain number of projects in motion, while still being able to easily maintain a higher number of teams and a higher number of things in flight, because you're learning to still focus on WIP, but actually get more of those lines in flight at one time. So let me explain. So if a company had 5 major products or services, my number one recommendation, while they still have the training wheels on, would be to draw attention and focus on one, finish a release of that one, then focus on the next, then the next, then the next. And even if it took a 5-year plan to do that, and it took them 1.25 years apiece to deliver these projects, and what they discovered at the end was that each one got its own release, each one got its own focus, team size maintained the same, but you were able to get things to market faster, you were able to generate revenue earlier. I would argue that's a win. And then once you start getting those wins, if you realize that you want to have more frequent releases of those products, you could even create an individual timeline for each one of those 5 products. And that is my definition of scaling. But I want to warn that should never be done unless all those precursors that we were talking about in place. Agile is easily one of the best and fastest ways to scale work inside of an organization. The secret is you want to make sure you're scaling responsibly. So if you focus on iterative design and development first, and then ask yourself, am I building things with a lean manufacturing mindset? So do I have Kanban-driven development and an iterative design framework? And if you're doing both of those, I think that the whole concept of breaking down big ideas into smaller bits, making sure you understand your targeted persona, creating a lean workflow, whether it's a story map or a journey map, and understanding, emphasizing using fewer of your, and I'm using the right word here, resources, meaning money, computers, technology, etc., and allowing teams to swarm and ensure the quality of what you're building is being maintained, and that you're able to frequently deliver something that's high quality and still is a system being delivered rather than its parts. And I think that's important. I always saw the meme regarding Agile where someone said, I want to make an Agile cake. And someone said, sure, well, here's the flour. I'll be right back with the eggs, and they break the eggs, and the person saying, I think you see where I'm going with this. At no point is the person going to stick their hands in the oven to make a cake. But I think it's just interesting to see how when some people think iterative, they think just one small piece at a time, when their focus should be on delivering one core set of functionality at a time. So I think this begs for cross-functional teams, for T-shaped teams, for organizations that understand how to focus on delivering a whole product or service, or a whole chunk, or a whole addition of a product or service. And I think it's important for us to recognize and realize that when organizations are scaling incorrectly, or when they're doing it too early, is the number one reason for their failure. So let's talk for a minute about when not to scale. So if you find that your organization is struggling to get products or services to market, scaling's not going to help you get there any quicker. It's not going to help you get more products or services to market faster. If you find that your organization has outstanding technical debt and you want to scale so you can take care of your projects and your debt, that it doesn't work that way, right? That's not going to happen. If you don't have clear distinction of every Agile role, if you don't have a clear vision and strategy, if your teams are not motivated and they feel like they're just being worked to death, scaling is not going to help you. The way that I look at it is, if what you're building currently is a pile of crap, scaling and building a bigger or taller pile of crap isn't going to do anything but smell worse. It's not going to get you any further along down the line of where you're trying to go. And it doesn't matter which of the scaled frameworks you choose. The truth is, each one of them has something about them that makes sense. I'm going to say that again. So each one of those different scaled frameworks has something about them that makes sense. But holistically, I can't say that I appeal to any one of them and say, that's the one. They each have their ups and downs. They each have bounces, and they each have places that work well. So I guess the key here is to understand why you need to scale, make sure you're prepared to scale, and make sure it makes sense. The one piece of advice I always give here whenever an organization says, hey, we're ready to scale, I always ask them to bring in an outside Agile coach, even if it's just for a short time, to assess where you are, take a look, and make sure that there's no other things that you need to tweak prior to making a decision to scale. Because what we found is that here in 2020, more organizations are stepping out of bounds, or they're failing with their scaling. That's a rhyme. They're failing with scaling because they're not doing the things necessary in order to make it effective. So regardless of what you're trying to do in your organization, I beg you to take a closer look. Dig a little deeper. Find out what your real reason is behind scaling, and make sure that you're prepared so that you don't end up in a loser circle when it comes to scaling and failing. So I hope that was useful to you, and I hope that you really enjoy this episode. It was fun for me. So I invite you to visit AgileDad.com, where you can learn more about scaling, other topics, and anything Agile related. We'd love to help you and your organization. Remember, you can always reach out to us at learnmore@agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can even call us at 866-410-1616. That's our toll-free line. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions, your recommendations, and most importantly, we'd love to help you and your organization become more agile. So on behalf of the entire team at AgileDad, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time.